presentation. We've got our first two slides that we're used to seeing, which is our service, trust, and results. Really just the way that we at Matco provide the vision and the dream of successful business ownership for our franchisees, and the same service, trust, and results that you provide for your customers to have your successful business, right? I mean, it all goes hand in hand. We're all here for the same thing. There is some proprietary information going through here. I have, just so you know, I have printed the materials in a PDF. So I will email you the PDF of the slide presentation. I will also attach the a copy of the order form so you have access to it. So all of this stuff will be coming to you because there is some really good information throughout here that you can save, print off, or review for your own personal gain. So the agenda, are you worried about it? Are you worried because you've never been a technician? I absolutely love the fact guys that have never been techs, don't know diagnostics. Sometimes they're the most successful ones we have in the business when it comes to selling diagnostics. If you're worried about what customers will ask you and having the answers, we're going to go through a couple of steps here that'll really show you and hopefully uncover some ways to get those answers, whether it be, through the tool, through calling your DSR myself. We'll also have Sam LeBron is in the southern states with us too. So he's another DSR you'll have access to. We'll make sure you have his information also. And then, this is really just to make you feel comfortable about starting the conversation and getting a handle on how to get some of those answers and really start moving some diagnostics in your area. So the 4 questions, this is really, near and dear to my heart because this is what the DSR program 4 years ago really started with. This was our first big thing that we put out company-wide to help drive diagnostics. And what we did when we were on rides with distributors or when we were going out doing demos for distributors, how we started the conversation with people and how we really kicked over the rocks and started looking for some sales for you guys. So we put together this order of questions and some follow-ups, and we're going to go through that today. So the first one, is simple, is what are you using for a scan tool? What are you using for diagnostics? What are you pulling codes with? Any phrase of this is really key to starting it. And I ask this question to literally every technician I talk to, whether it's, obviously an oil change guy that's fresh out of high school, or if it's an older veteran or a shop owner. It's the same question, maybe labeled in a different manner with a different terminology, but it's always the same gist of the question. And the reason is it really tells me where they're at as far as their diagnostic knowledge. If they realize at this point that, one scanner doesn't do it all and they need multiple scan tools, multiple coverage, I know they're serious with diagnostics because they have multiple scan tools. How high end of a diagnostic tool they have, how much they're willing to invest in diagnostics. These are things that I can start really building or planning out my sales pitch based on the information they're going to give me. So I really push questions and not information because I want to know as much as they will tell me about their current situation. And that way they'll tell me, if you listen, they'll tell you exactly what they need and what they don't have. And that's what that's for. So, I have follow-ups to this one, right? Depending on what they answer, I have a snap-on. Okay, well, how do you like your snap-on? Oh, I love it. Okay, well, is it doing everything you need it to do? And if the question is yes, it's doing everything I need it to do, at that point, maybe that guy is not ready to have an honest, open diagnostic conversation with you, and you may need to move on to the next guy. If he comes at you and he says, yeah, it does everything you do, I'm completely open book and honest with these guys. Be like, well, I know you say that, but can I probe just a little more? Can I ask another question? And most of the time they're like, yeah, go ahead, And I say, you honestly can't think back over the last couple of weeks where you've sent a car out to a dealership, had it towed out of here, called in a specialist or anything like that. There's not one car that you've had to have someone else come and help you with that you had to pay. And at that point, they're like, oh, well, I did have a car that, of course I had a car. I had, a key I needed programmed, and we don't do that. Neither does our tool. So I had to call in a locksmith, or I had to tow it to the dealership, or, we had a module we had to replace and it needed to be flashed, so we called someone in to do that, or we sent it to the dealership or something like that. So they start realizing that, they did say, hey, our scan tool is awesome and it does everything, but we did have this core that this car or vehicle we couldn't do. So at that point, now he understands and he saw that his scan tool is not doing it all, right? So he sees that by his own admission. And that's really what I'm looking for, is that pain point. This number one question is really in depth, and really how you start trying to find that bullet wound where the shop's bleeding money, and you're just going to stick your finger in that wound and just make him squeal a little bit, and that's what we're trying to do with this. Once we're able to discover this, now we can start talking about it. You don't have to have the answer, but the question I have that I follow up with, as soon as he says there was this car, I say, well, if I had a solution for you that would have handled that for you in your shop without having to send it out, would you be interested in looking at it? And most of the time, the answer is yes. And by the time we get to the store, or if he's on the store and we, have the demo on the shelf and we walk back to the demo, he's not even curious about if we do that anymore. Because you're just saying, hey, if we would have had a solution for that, would you be interested? Well, now you're starting the diagnostic conversation. You're putting a product in his hand, and we're moving down the road. Okay, so that's why number one is so important to us, and where I really take number one. Okay, now if he does come back to you and he's like, hey, would you have handled that? Well, there's a couple things in the presentation that we're going to show you about, but then you also have access to me, to where you can send me an email, a phone call, a text message, and ask me that, and I can do some research to figure out if we would have handled that for him. And then you could go right back to him and be like, yes, we would have been able to do that right here for you. Second one is the scan tool up to date. I've sold Snap-on Diagnostics for about 5 years for them before I joined Matco. And we were trained by the Snap-on company group, whatever you want to call them, to really pick on the scan tools that were in shops that were out of date. So we really went after those guys because our tool, our demo tool, was the most current software we had. And if we had a tool that we were going up against that was 2 or 3 years out of date, it was just so much easier to show them the cool features and the things that we can do on these cars now with an up-to-date tool. Now, they possibly could have just spent the money to update their tool and have the same capability we did. But a lot of times people don't see it that way. A lot of time they go, oh, well, yours does a whole lot more than mine. How much is it? And now you're down to, a pricing thing. They want it. They just want to know pricing. So, that's how we pick it there. And you need to kind of go down the same path. There's twofold here, double-edged sword. You need to make sure that you're looking at guys that have our product, and you're making sure you're selling them the updates in the software. Right? Because you don't want the competition to come in and take their brand new, fully up-to-date tool and go toe-to-toe with ours that's 2 or 3 years out of date. Right? That's opening the door and giving opportunity for the competition to come in. The other thing is, if you got a guy that's out of date, well, now how do I get my demo in his hands for a week? That's the thing. How can I just let him have this without telling him ours is better or theirs is worse? How can I puppy dog that to him so he'll use it and see the differences in what we have and he has? And then if it's not update, are they looking at updating it? Are they about to spend money on diagnostics? If they are, how much are they spending to update it? Do they know that? If it's $1,000, well, I can take that $1,000 and roll it into a Max Flex or an M3 and bring down the price of mine because they're spending that $1,000 anyways. It's already spent, right? So I'm just starting to add money. And speaking of adding money, have you ever seen any medium duty trucks in there they're doing maintenance on? Or maybe they do work on a fleet of, F350s, 450s, 550s, and maybe they want to start getting into some tractor trailers and get up into the high, medium, and low heavy duty class of vehicles to start doing some diagnostics. So is it something that that could open up another avenue of revenue for the shop by adding medium duty or heavy duty coverage to their arsenal. And if they are interested in it, well, now we can start talking about that type of subject and really go down that one. And the fourth one's kind of interesting because it's something that typically is going to need some input from you. If there's anything you could change about your current scan tool, the Snap-on one you're using or the Alltel one you're using, if there's anything you change about, what would it be? And, you may have to let them know that, we have internet on our tools. Would it be cool to have internet at the car to be able to do your repair information right there, your wire diagrams, being Bluetooth to the car, so you're not having to sit in the driver's seat to scan the car. Things like that. You may have to, put words in their mouth, so to speak, to start saying, oh, well, there is different things out there now. So 4 is kind of a one that you may have to lead them with if they don't have something on the tip of their tongue. So some of the responses that we've received as DSRs, the ability to reprogram modules or program keys is always one that comes up for us. It's always a popular one. And we also love the one down here, number 8, that says, hey, we just check codes. All we do is, my code reader's fine. That's awesome because, I don't know what type of diagnostics or parts replacements or auto repair you're performing with the code reader. I would love to know more about that and hear his business plan. So that's one that I always love getting. But these are common questions we get that they want to know that we have the capability. The cool thing is that the number 1 up here, the ability to reprogram modules, I really don't want to do, that's where I have the conversation with them about programming. Well, we really don't program modules, but we do initialize or code them to the car. If you want to get into flashing and programming, you're going to need a Max Flash, you're going to need a JBox, something of that sort. So I'll go ahead and educate them a little bit on that and let them know that we do set up plenty of modules. If you needed a PCM replaced, we do have the ability to copy the information out of the old one, switch them, and paste it into the new module. And they love that. Programming keys, we finish the job. If you've got a Chrysler and you've got the 4-digit PIN, we absolutely do that. We do Asians and domestic keys very, very well. And they love hearing that. And then, like I say, we get into some of these things to where, the codes and repair information and diagnostics on the tool, that leads down the max fix line and things like that. So the reason we use these is really to identify customer needs. And like I said, if you listen to the answers of the questions you're asking, they'll tell you what you need and where you can go with that. And he may... The bottom one right there is awesome. Your customer might mention something we can do, which is really cool. And if that happens, well, the conversation just took a really good turn. So starting from the top, we're talking about, when you get asked, can your tool do this? Most of these answers can be found inside the tool. And we really want to kind of show you quickly how you do this. So whether you're clicking on an Acura or you're clicking on a Chevrolet, this is the screen you get, right? So you see the 2 software coverages here, but you also down here at the bottom have vehicle coverage. So you can see what you can do to that car. This is a specific vehicle coverage. So on this GM right here, that's why you're seeing Cadillac, it's just GM vehicles, right? So it's going to cover GM, Chevy, Oldsmobile, Pontiac, all that type of stuff. You can actually type in the module up top where I've got ECM typed in, and this is ECM, and these are special functions and things that we do to this 2020 XT6, right? I mean, the list is long. We got 884 pages of information right here that they can scroll through and look through. It's very specific special functions, actuation test, all this stuff's built into here. So they can look through this, or you can scroll through this. I don't know that I would read this or go through every page, but to show the customer that they have the ability to search for what they want, whether it be by year model or different engine coverage, things like that, they can do it here. So going back, to the same page from before, the Chevy dealership or the Chevy software, we have the introduction. Now, this is one I make sure I show a customer. So when I go in, I'll just say, hey, Mr. Customer, looking at GM software, this is kind of an overview of our GM coverage. Now, it doesn't have every single thing in it, but it's a nice overview. We got 3 pages here. So you got the GM modules up top that we have access to. You have the different model coverage. And then here's kind of your, this is, it's kind of broken. So the top one here, clearing DTC's reading, that's actually basic functions. But the special functions and below, this is where it really gets interesting. So you're going to scroll through nice and slow. Hopefully he has the tool in his hand and he's the one scrolling and reading all these things. You know, so he's going to look at the EVAP service bay test. Okay, that's awesome. If he's a diagnostic shop, they need to know how to do that, and that we do that because it's a big thing for them. They don't have to drive it to wait for that monitor set on an emissions repair. Transmission control module, setting up the SDM, writing the serial numbers into the BCM. You got body control module setups, initializations. We've got throttle matching, special functions, individual key numbers, enabling and disabling keys, you know, resetting the starter interlock. You know, you want to go through it nice and slow. And that's why I say if you have in their hands, they will do it at their pace for the reading. But the cool thing is a lot of times when they go into these, like GM, Ford, Chrysler, or if they're in an Asian shop, get them into Toyota, Lexus, Nissan, something like that, to where they can see the introduction and they might pick out a couple things that they have seen in the past that they needed to be able to do that they couldn't. So it's really important to go through that list and let them look and read, because they are picking stuff out that they look at a possibility of being able to do some of these things that could really sell the tool without you having to do a whole lot of anything, right? So make sure you know how. I'm going to jump back. Make sure you know how to get to this page, you know, your main page, your Chevy, and then you want to know the introduction tab right here so that you can get them into this. And this is where the information is, the overview that's going to let them pick something out that's special to them. Now, when you start your demo and you're going to put the tool in their hands and all that stuff, the one thing we do want you to remember is not to prejudge your customers. And I always start with a Max 3. You know, I've got a Max 3 demo. I've got a Max Flex demo that's a full blown. I've got a Max Lite, you know, that I have as well. And I would tell you that 95% of the time when I travel, I only carry my Maximus 3 because I want to show them the best we have to offer. I don't ever want to start with a light and then try and move up. I want to show them the best, the baddest thing that we have to offer and let them use it, play with it, talk about it, hold it, touch it, and start there. If they just can't afford the price or they don't need that much, then we can start going down. And it's a lot easier to get cheaper than it is to get more expensive, right? So keep that in mind. Now, these are the slides that I told you that we do have, that I have in PDF form that you will get emailed. This is kind of stuff that we have come together with about things to focus on with each shop. So, you know, what kind of shop it is, whether it's body shop, mechanical, dealership, you know, tire shop, so on and so forth. We kind of put together a profile. So in body shops, we really are going to start focusing on the conversation for you is going to be on pre and post scans and making sure they're getting paid for those scans. You know, focusing on seat calibrations, auto focusing headlights that are out now that we have capability on quick resets. And the cool thing here is based on the Max 3 pricing, with just Max 3, typically body shops don't want the Max Fix because they're body shop, not mechanical. But based off of $4,500 at a $60 an hour mechanical labor rate, 38 cars, the M3 is paid for. So most of these shops that you're dealing with, you know, could average 30, could do 38 cars in a month or 2 months or even 3 months and have that Max 3 completely paid off within that window. And then every car after that for the pre and post scans, you know, it's just money in the pocket. Now, this is just pre scans and post scans. That's not including anything that they're setting up airbag modules or body control modules or seat calibrations and things that they would normally send out to a dealership or call someone in and pay. This is just the scan part of it, okay? So it is very easy for these guys to pay that tool off and get their return on investment. Tire shop or brake shop, you know, TPMS, obviously brake bleeding, electronic parking brake release. The electronic parking brake release is starting to feed over from the Europeans into domestics now. Ford F-150 has a model now that the electronic parking brake has to be disabled through a scan tool for the rear brakes in order to change the brake pads. Okay, Volvo's been doing it for many years. Audi's got it. Volkswagen's got it. You know, so it's definitely alive and well in the European, and it's starting to come over to the domestic side as well. So something else to really focus on with them. Okay, general repair shops, obviously coding modules, keys, ECMs, body control modules, engine controllers, things like that, that we have access to. TPMS, obviously if they're dealing with tires, in conjunction with our TPMS 2.0 is a nice little package to put together. And then really showing them the service resets. The service resets, we have been expanding the coverage on there just to make it simple for these guys to get in, get to the section of the tool they need on that vehicle, perform it, and get out of there. You know, we're one of the only companies doing this process that's speeding up and saving them time. And then obviously when you have the code, your demo has the max fix for life. So you can show them the max fix and how it pulls up the vehicle, crosses it over, and then also gives them any pertinent information, whether it be wiring diagrams, diagnostic flow charts, or TSBs, and how we pull that information up that other companies aren't doing on their tool. Specialty shops, European and Asians, guys, we shine with European and Asian. That's our bread and butter. These are some of the things that Snap-on and Autel and Bosch really struggle with, and we wanted you to have this information so you knew it. You know, so Snap-on's having issues IDing some of the vehicles, and it's very limited on the European. The two stories I always share with my distributors and with my end users is Josh Hadaway's a wonderful man up in Chattanooga. He's a distributor for us. We went into a Mercedes-Benz specialty shop, and the guy had a brand new Barris workstation, you know, $15,000. And this is a couple of years ago before Zeus was around. And I just made the comment. I just said, hey man, so that's a beautiful looking, you know, workstation there. And I said, how long have you had it? Because it looked brand new. He goes, oh, I've had it for about 3 weeks now. I said, well, how do you like it? He goes, that piece of crap sucks. And I was like, you know, I'm grinning on the inside. You know, I'm loving the conversation. And so I said, well, what's going on? You know, I know Snap-on. I said, maybe I can help you with it, right? Give him the customer service from the Matco side here. And he goes, well, I got this car outside, and it won't even access. It doesn't even recognize there's an ABC module on it. And I was like, what's an ABC module? I kind of thought he was pulling my leg. He goes, that's the active body control module. And I was like, oh, okay. So I said, well, you know, our tool does that. And he goes, really? I said, I have no idea. I said, let's go get my demo and take a look. And I handed the guy my 2.0A, you know, the older one, from a couple of years ago, and I handed it to him. He plugged in. He's closed the door. The windows are up. I can't even talk to the guy or see what he's doing. But standing there for about a minute or two, the car starts freaking out. I've never seen it before. It starts freaking out. It starts bouncing all around, and I didn't know what was going on. But apparently the Mercedes-Benz has what they call a rodeo relearn. So it bounces on the front left, then it bounces on the front right, right rear, left rear. He clears the code, and the car's ready to roll. Took him about 5 minutes with our tool to figure it out, and he's never used our tool before. And so he absolutely loved it, and the fact that we had the capability. Now, on the other story I have is when I was with Snap-on, I had a brand new Solus Ultra at the time, and I plugged it into my 2007 Chrysler 300C with the Hemi in it. The electronics are pretty much all Mercedes-Benz at that point, when, you know, Daimler was still involved. And I plugged up with the Snap-on, and I had access to about 11 modules on my car, and there were no codes on the health report. Everything came back clean, functional, good to go. So I got my hands on a 2.0 from Matco and plugged it into the car, did the health report on it. There were 27 modules on the car that I had access to, and I had 10 codes in the car. The Snap-on didn't even look at the radio, the door modules, the sunroof module, you know, all that stuff. It didn't even look at. I have a trunk module. I didn't even know what a trunk module does, but I had access to it on my Maximus product. So the Snap-on tool doesn't even recognize some of the modules on there and doesn't even pull them up or access them on the health report, whereas we do. So that's my Snap-on story with all European. The same really goes with bidirectional encoding. There's endless stories of Snap-ons not being able to do a simple throttle body relearn on some of these vehicles that are out here for the Asian market. It's kind of interesting at times, but again, we've got these slides for you. Domestic PMI, the power balance test, which is the factory Ford test that they do for misfires, being able to program keys or initialize them, module coding, injector coding, you know, a lot of things that we do really, really well. Body shops, again, we talked about the pre and post scans before, but also being able, with an open Android system, being able to access third-party apps like the CCC1 application that a lot of body shops are using for their repair and estimating software. They can actually install the app on our system and be able to run that. So we've got, you know, the slide here just to really represent that, you know, scan tools don't last forever. You know, a lot of these on here are no longer supported. They're obsolete. They can't be updated. And we really wanted to lead into the coding and reprogramming, right? So coding initializations versus reprogramming and flashing. So the simplest way we come up with this is the remote is your, you know, your engine control module or your transmission control module or body control module. This is it. It's already, you know, these remotes come as a universal, so they're already set with programming internal to them. All you're doing is you're trying to find the right combination of numbers to identify the TV to the remote. You're initializing or coding this remote to your TV. That's what our scan tools do, right? So the module that we get from the factory, the engine control module or transmission control module, what we get from them already has programming in it, because it applies, that same module goes into many different models for them. When we get it, our tool has the ability to go in and punch the correct numbers in to initialize it to that car. Okay, that's coding and initializations on what we do. What we do not do is have this remote that's completely blank with nothing inside of it. We are not able to go into that remote and put programs into it to make it work. Okay, so that's really the difference in between coding and programming, is that this one already comes programmed. We're just initializing and setting it up to the vehicle. And I hope this is the easiest way we could think of displaying it. Eric Palugi came up with this, and I thought it was great to really understand that what we do and what we don't do. So coding versus flashing or programming. So some of the things that we do and don't do. So GM is really big when most of their modules need to be flashed or reprogrammed. A lot of their engine control or TCMs, the transmission control modules, are part of the valve body and inside the transmission. They have to be flashed or programmed to the car. It's going to require a factory tool or our Max Flash or our J-Box that we sell in order to handle those vehicles. So flash programming, we talked about, you know, that's the middle point here about, you know, when it comes blank from the factory. And the example I use there is a lot of Ford powertrain control modules. They come completely blank. There's nothing on them. So it would require the factory tool, the flash, the Max Flash, or a J-Box, whichever, you know, product you have provided to the customer to be able to handle that. So The biggest thing we want to make sure is that you're not going to become the new technician. We don't want you to do that. We want you to provide them a product and really kind of walk away from it. You know, they need to be responsible for diagnosing their cars and, you know, all that type of stuff. So we don't want you to know diagnostics. We just want you to know the product and how to get the conversation going and let them know that you're in the diagnostic business. Because if you're not promoting diagnostics in your area and you're not talking about it to every technician out there, I promise you, this day and age, they need a scan tool. They need diagnostics to be able to do some of the simplest jobs out there. And if you're not promoting it, you're really setting up your competition to come out and sell it for you. So, you know, you really need to make the decision of either you're in the diagnostic business or you're not.